The Chumash, we believe there's three levels to the world. There's the upper world where the sky people live, the middle world where we live. It's like a large island held up by two giant serpents, two giant snakes. When the snakes get restless and they move around, that's what causes the earthquakes. And then there's the underworld, where there's what we now call evil spirits, the boogeyman, this time of year, politicians. In the sky world and the upper world, there's sky coyote, sky lizard, sky eagle, the great golden eagle, the sky snake, the sun, the moon, and morning star. Those are the sky people. Long, long ago, before there were any people in the middle world, it was the sky people who got together to decide what the Chumash people would look like. Now, Sky Coyote being Sky Coyote, he wanted the Chumash people to look like him. He wanted the Chumash people to have furry ears like his, a little nose like his, yellow eyes like his. Sky Eagle, the great golden eagle, he talked him out of all those things. Sky Lizard sat quietly, didn't say a single word, just listened. And this discussion lasted several days and several nights. Finally, they pretty much decided this is how the Chumash people would look. Except they hadn't discussed hands yet. The coyote jumped up and he held his paw up. He goes, the Chumash people should have paws as hands, at least something like me. Well, they were so tired of arguing with Coyote, they said, okay, we'll let you have that one thing. The Chumash people will have paws as hands. Now, in the upper world, in the sky world, there's a sacred stone. One of the things that's special and sacred about it is if you leave a paw print, a hand print, a footprint, it stays there forever, never leaves. So they told Coyote, they go, dude, I think we were the first ones that started the dude phrase. They go, Coyote, put your paw print in the stone, but when you do, it'll be there forever. Forever, the Chumash people then will have paws as hands. So he was very proud that at least the Chumash people are going to have something like him. And he is savoring the moment, bringing the paw down very slowly, and just before he's about to put that paw print in the stone, he forgot about Lizard, who'd sat quietly. And the Lizard ran between the Coyote's leg, ran and put his handprint and then ran and hid in the crack of the crevice of the rock. Coyote was so mad, he howled as loud as he could and chased after the Lizard. But when the other sky people came and looked at the handprint of the Lizard, they liked that much better. And when you see a lizard go scurrying by, now the little baby lizards are out there, really cute. They're like about that big, I see them. But we have hands just like lizards. They have 5 fingers and everything. Now, tonight I'm going to share, I think, the way we all should be learning things. With the old way, the oral tradition way. Well, with a few video extras. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. As Bill said, my name's Alan Salazar. Some of the people on the back panel back there, when you leave, you can take a look at some of them. Some of them are my family members. My dad, who was a Marine, fought in World War II. Any of you, if there's any Marines or anyone that has friends or family members that are Marines, they know once a Marine, always a Marine. That was my dad. Where I get my Native American and Chumash and Tataviam ancestry, that's on my father's side of the family. We were all born, the older relatives, in or around San Fernando. We went into San Fernando Mission records and traced back our family history and our family tree. We were able to trace back to when the San Fernando Mission first opened up in 1797, and my ancestors were some of the first ancestors to be brought into the San Fernando Mission. So that's how we found out about the Tataviam ancestry. Until me and my aunt, with the help of the Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History, we didn't even know about Tataviam. We knew some of our ancestors came from villages around Castaic, and some came from villages around Simi Valley. But when we got into Mission Records, we found out the names of the village, and were able to research and found out the name of the village around up in the Castaic area was a Tataviam tribe, which we know very little about. Once the mission period started, the Tataviam people were wiped out very quickly. So I think there's about 26 words written down somewhere in some dusty old book back in the Smithsonian, probably one of Harrington's boxes of notes. Then we traced back to the village of Tuapu, which is Tapo Canyon in Simi Valley, which is a Chumash village. And that's how we traced back. Like many California Indians, we were Fernandinho. Whatever mission you were around, you were just named that. The Tongva people just recently, in the 60s and 70s, researched and said, no, you know what, we're Tongva, we're not Gabrielino. So a lot of people think the Indian people from Los Angeles are Gabrielino, but their native name is they were the Tongva people. So that's how I got my Native American heritage. I've been doing this, it seems like, all my life. And to give you an example, this is a picture of me, and I think I'll pass it around. And just for your reference, the little 6-year-old boy here with a mohawk, that's me. The mean-looking man there with the mohawk, that's my dad, and you can kind of pass that around. And let me share this story with you, and it's why I'm dressed. There's a reason why I'm dressed the way I am tonight. When I was 6 years old in 1957, we lived in Hanford, California, where my mom is from. Hanford, California, then and today, is a small, conservative, mostly Portuguese, dairy farming community. In 1957, there was about 10,000, 11,000 people there. Everybody knew everybody. In 1957, I was 6 years old. It was summer, and I wanted a mohawk. And me and my brother, my older brother, wanted mohawks because the only Indian people we saw on television, they all had mohawks. They were on Davy Crockett, Daniel Boone television show. So they were all Eastern Iroquois, from those tribes, the Mohegan. So we go, Pop, we want Indian haircuts this summer. Can we get mohawks? My dad said, yeah, okay, you can get a mohawk. He took us down to the barber shop in downtown Hanford, California on Main Street, and we got mohawks. My dad gets in the barber's chair, and the barber says, take a little off the side, trim at the back, Abe. He goes, no, give me a mohawk. So all three of us walked out of that barber shop in downtown Hanford. And prior to that, everyone in Hanford knew who we were anyway. We moved there when I was 2, so in 53, we'd been there a few years. My mom's family had been there for years. One of them was a well-known Portuguese dairy farmer on the east side of town. So everyone knew who we were. My parents were one of the few interracial couples at the time in 1957. So for all of us to walk out of that barber shop, it was a bold statement. This was before the civil rights. And we got as many angry looks as probably more angry looks than we did smiles or cool haircut. We didn't get that many of those. What I found out later on in life, actually just a little bit over a year ago when my son was getting married, my sister came down and we were talking, and I told her I had the mohawk picture touched up. And she says, do you remember the rest of the story? Well, I said, I was 6 years old, so all I remember is getting a mohawk haircut, and I thought I was bad. She goes, do you remember about going to Mass the following weekend after you got your mohawk? And I go, no. And she told me the story. Apparently, just before we got our mohawk, we went to Mass every Sunday, never missed. And the Padre, as we were leaving the church a couple Sundays before all of us got our mohawks, the Padre said, Abel, most of my male parishioners, they wear a suit, or at least a nice white shirt with a tie and slacks. My dad goes, oh, that's nice, okay. Didn't say anything. That generation usually were, people of, men and women, a few words. Their actions spoke for them. So we get our mohawks. We're going back to Mass for the first time with mohawks. We get there early like we always did, usually sat in the back. And we get there, we start to walk in. My dad goes, no, wait a second. My sister's the oldest, she's 14, so she remembers this. She goes, well, Papa, we better go in. Mass is going to start in a few minutes. He goes, that's all right, just wait a minute. He waited until Mass was just starting because my father knew that the Padre always started his Mass the same way. He started the Mass with his back to the congregation. he would bless the cross, say a little prayer, and then turn around and greet the congregation and start his sermon, start the Mass. As he turned around to bless the cross, my dad goes, "Okay, let's go." And we started to walk in. As we walked in and went by the first back few pews where he usually sat, my sister goes, "Pop, there's some seats there." He goes, "Nope, keep on going." Just about then, the Padre turned around and saw me, my brother, and my dad with mohawks walking down the center of the aisle. My sister says the look on the Padre's face was worth well over $1 million. We walked all the ways up to the front and sat in the very front pew. The Padre had to look at me, my brother, and my father through the whole Mass. As Mass ended and everyone started to leave, my sister got up to leave. My father once again said, "No, just sit down and wait." And he waited for everyone to leave. And as the last person walking out, he said, "Okay, let's go." We walked out, and the Padre was in the back greeting everyone like he normally does. "Thank you for coming to Mass. Hope you have a nice Sunday, have a good week." My father walked up to the Padre, and my sister said you could tell the Padre was hoping that Pop would just walk on by. My dad walked up and grabbed his hand, and he was a plaster, so once he got that hand, that Padre was not getting away. She said he could tell he was trying to. And my father said to the Padre, "Padre, when I come to church, I come to pray to him, to ask for his guidance and his forgiveness. So if I want to come in my best Levi's and a nice shirt and my good cowboy boots, that's between me and God." And the Padre never said anything to my father again about slacks and white shirt and tie. And probably never said anything to my father again after that at all. And that's how I was raised, to be proud of my Native American heritage and to stand up for what you believe. And that's pretty much what I've done most of my life. Tonight I'm going to talk about the Tomol, the plank canoe. And I consider myself just one of the luckiest people in the world. In 1997, we built a plank canoe. A group of us at that time I was living here in Ventura, and some of us were from down in Los Angeles and Thousand Oaks and Ventura and Santa Barbara and Santa Ynez. And with the help of the Santa Barbara Maritime Museum, the Museum of Natural History, the folks here at the Channel Islands Marine Sanctuary, NOAA, there was a lot of organizations that helped us, put it together. A wonderful gentleman by the name of Peter Howarth, who is the director of the Marine Mammal Sanctuary. He rescues sea lions and things like that, and also a master boat builder. He had overseen the construction of several Tomols, and we helped him finish up a couple of them that he was working on, the one that's in the Santa Barbara Maritime Museum today. And we helped him finish up that one, and then we started the construction of Limuw, which is swordfish in the Chumash language. Limuw is a 24-foot redwood plank canoe, flat bottom. Our paddles are about 11 feet long, double-bladed. You paddle on your knees, except for the captain, and he's the only one that is sitting and does most of the steering and a little bit of paddling. The 3 or 4 paddlers in the front, we put sandbags in the bottom of the Tomol, so we fill up sandbags, about 20, 25, 30 pounds of sand, and we put those sandbags in the bottom for ballast. In the old days, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, they estimate that we've been building plank canoes for about 3,000 years. They would just put a couple large rocks, maybe 4 or 5 large rocks, and there would be less men because they were better seamen than we were. So it took us from 1997 to 2001 to feel good enough to try a crossing from the mainland out to Santa Cruz Island, where some people in another creation story says where the Chumash people were created. So the islands are very special to us. And over the years, we've taken some of the sandbags out, so it sits a little bit higher. We're not pulling as much weight. In our first crossing, I'm going to show a short video here in just a minute. We started with 5 paddlers. Most of the time, we'd have 5 paddlers in our 24-foot canoe. That first year, plank canoes all leak. So in the old days, they used tar, that asphaltum, and mixed it with pine pitch. When you take a pine tree and get that sap from it, especially the Torrey pines, it's like a waterproof. And that's what they used to seal up the canoes with, and they leaked. So there was always someone that was bailing. You know, they would take large abalone shells or make baskets like the one I have in the back, and someone would bail. We used the best lumber, redwood, #1 grade lumber that was milled just especially for us, for our Tomol, our canoe. We used the best power tools and grinders and sanders and table saws, and got everything down to fit to less than a 32nd of an inch. I mean, we would just everything. There's not a single nail in it. It's all glued together. We did a little groove on each plank, but then each one we used the best epoxies and fast drying epoxies. So once we got aboard and we go, is it there? Is that what we want? Yeah, okay. Put the epoxy, then it was there, and it still leaks. We've made 6 crossings, and every crossing it's leaked. The last 3 or 4, not much. I think when we got over to Santa Cruz Island this year, there was maybe about 3 inches of water down in the bottom. That wasn't bad. The first year we had 7, 8 inches of water in the bottom through most of it. Our feet were wet, we were cold, and it was an extremely difficult journey. Let me go ahead and start the video. There's a long video, and I hope some of you aren't that disappointed if you've seen the Return to Limuw. This is a short version. It's the version that I take when I go to elementary schools. And basically it just has the beginning, middle, and end. The Return to Limuw, the documentary, is about 14, 15 minutes long. It has some interviews of myself and Roberta Cadero and Marcus Lopez and some of the rangers that helped us and things like that. That's Limuw. The swordfish inlay was done by one of our elders who has since passed on, Crescencia Lopez. There you can see how long the paddles are. And like I said, in the beginning, lots of times we had 5 paddlers. The ears are not just for the decorations. In the back we have a flower. It's supposed to be like the datura flower. They also help keep the water out when you're in the swells. The first year we went fairly close up to Anacapa, but the last couple years we just go straight out to Santa Cruz. We leave about 3:30, 3:45 in the morning when the oceans are nice and flat and calm. The first year in 2001, I think it was about 3:45 when we actually started paddling in the harbor. This year we got a little bit better. We're like 3:30. Last year was like 4:15. So we try and start early, but we get kind of caught up in the moment and say prayers and blessings and, like I said, see friends that we haven't seen for a long time. So it takes a little while. The first, like I said, 3 hours, we paddle in the dark. One thing that we realized in that first year, we forgot to practice in the dark. So that first crew, and I was part of that first crew, when we paddled out of the harbor and got into open water and it was pitch black, we have a small light so they can see us, and we follow the lights of our support boats. We realized, you know what, we forgot to practice in the dark. It was a completely new experience for us. Took us almost about 11 hours that first year. Swells were 3 to 4 foot, especially the shipping lanes where all the big tanker ships go, and then that between Anacapa and Santa Cruz Islands, the currents, and if the wind picks up, which it did the first year, and the second, third, fourth, and fifth years, we've always hit big swells. So there you can see, that's when we started using 4 paddlers. At the end there, in fact, when we were taking on a lot of water, we had those 4 paddlers, and the one paddler that they took out was one of our younger paddlers, a big man, about 6'2", 260 pounds. And we took him out, and the Tomol instantly came up about a board. So we go, oh, yeah, that's much better. So we kind of low ride lots of times, but like I said, the first couple of years, we sat low in the water so it's not as tippy. we were relearning those skills that my ancestors were just instinctive and knew. And now as we've gotten a little bit better, we're used to that sway, we're used to that motion. Now we ride up a little bit higher. We only put maybe one plank underwater, maybe a plank and a half at best. So we put way less, we had put 40 sandbags in the bottom the first couple years. And I think now we're maybe about 25 sandbags, that we put in there to ride on. There's the Anacapa, which was a great picture. They go, paddle over by the arch so we can take your picture. And when you put our paddles up, that's a salute. But literally, as they were taking that picture, okay, wait a second, we got to get a little bit longer, hold it. And the surf and tide was pulling into the rocks right there by the arch. And I'm like, our captain's name is Perry. I go, Perry, we're like about 80 feet from those rocks. Maybe we should start paddling, So we quickly got out of there and made it. This young lady right here, that was 2001. This is 2008. I know for a fact she's 11 years old, and I was talking to her just this last weekend. And her older brother is now one of our youth paddles, and he paddles with us. And I ask her, I go, what grade are you in this year? She goes, 5th. And I go, how old are you? She goes, 11. I go, well, about 4 or 5 more years. I go, maybe you'll be one of our paddlers. Traditionally, it was all men. It was the Brotherhood of the Tomol. When we started building Limuw, one of our first meetings was, are women going to be involved? We knew if we said yes, it was something that we would be criticized from certain men and women within the Chumash community. So we took it very seriously, and there was a lot of discussion. We decided unanimously that yes, women would be involved. Women would help us build it. Women would paddle in it. Because like any culture, any group, I mean, you change, you evolve, you assimilate. In fact, most of us, after we made the vote, got on the phone and called to check on our portfolios and see how the stock market was doing. That's how much we've assimilated. So I asked the young lady, I go, in about 4 or 5 years, you'll probably be one of our youth paddlers. You think you're going to paddle? Because we've been trying to recruit our young women to be paddlers, and we have maybe 5 or 6 right now. And she said, well, I don't know. She goes, I'm kind of scared. That seems kind of scary to be out in the ocean in a canoe like that. And I go, I kind of thought that same thing when I started paddling, because I'd never paddled before. I wasn't a person of the ocean. I'd maybe been in a kayak once or twice in my life before then, and like I said, that was 1997. I was born in 51, so I was already old, or at least middle-aged. I tell everyone I'm just middle-aged now, as long as I live to be 114. But I go, I says, I thought I'd be scared too, because I'd never paddled a lot. I says, I'm not a very good swimmer even today. I'm still just, kind of average at best. I go, but when I got into the Tomol, I says, it just felt natural. I've never been afraid. I go, even when we're way out in the ocean and the swells are 4 to 5 feet, I've just never been afraid, and I should be. I says, I think there's something way back in our brains that, from our ancestors, 7, 8, 9, 10 generations ago that we just haven't used, but it's there. And I go, wait about 4 or 5 years and then think about it. This year, and there was a few people that were on the island actually after we already got there. This year was an incredible year. We'll probably never experience this again. Like I said, it usually takes us around 10 and a half hours. We have 2 or 3 support boats. We have about 25, 30 paddlers. And we switch paddlers out as we're going along from the support boats. How do I turn the pictures on? Okay. We literally put 2 paddlers in a little dinghy and take them out to the Tomol, and everyone holds on to each other, you know, and one person gets out of the Tomol and gets into the dinghy, and one gets out of the dinghy and one gets into the Tomol. We have, like I said, this is, you know, one of the people from the Marine Sanctuary and that supports us. This is actually just this last Saturday, about 3 o'clock in the morning. We're getting ready. We've just done a ceremony and prayers, and it's that usual. You know how people always, just before a picture's taken, they for some reason they close their eyes. But we literally only get a couple hours sleep that night, especially those of us that paddle. I mean, we're just, you would think at 57, and I've done this 6 times. You know, it would be no, but you're just so jazzed, and the adrenaline is flowing that we're ready. This is at sunrise. So this is actually the second crew, this is our support boat and some of the other paddlers. There are 2 of our young female paddlers. Our goal is, I don't think next year, maybe 2 years at the soonest, to have an all-female crew. So we need one to step up and be a captain. And to be a captain is more than knowing that you know, you put your paddle in this way, the Tomol is going to go that way, and put your paddle in that way, it's going to go that way. It's much more, I mean, the captain's the leader. So someone has to step forward and be a captain. This is our young, most of our young men, and it's something that 2 years ago and 3 years ago we were losing our young men. They started out 4 or 5 years ago being enthused and active, and then we started losing them. And I think it was a combination of, you know, like most young people, you know, they're, you know, playing with their iPod and video games and skateboarding and stuff like that. And so we've consciously gone out and recruited young people and let them get in the Tomol. Old guys like me, and I realized very early on that, you know what, when I get in the Tomol, man, I hate to get out. I mean, I just love this. But we have to. So those of us that have been doing it the longest, you know, and I know that at 57, I only have a couple more years of serious paddling left. So I want to take full advantage of every opportunity. And I've done it, and there's been a few other of the mature paddlers. We call ourselves the experienced paddlers. We're going to put in the experienced paddlers. I go, is that just a nice way of saying the old dudes? They go, yes. So we actually have a 200 club where we put in 4 paddlers, and we're well above 200 years in the Tomol. But we're started getting that's actually a paddle also in the front, but it's from the New Zealand. What's the New Zealand tribe anyway? Yeah, Maori. So the Maori people sent us this beautiful paddle to put in our Tomol. So we've had it in there the last couple of years. More young paddlers kicking back on the way over. Like I said, there was no swells. Usually, like I said, we get out in that channel, and there's 4 to 5 foot swells. I've been in a crew where we paddled. This time I paddled 3 hours, probably 8 miles. We got the most miles the first crew. We usually do. And then I've been in crews where I've paddled 2 hours and get maybe 3 miles, and I'm twice as exhausted from the 2-hour paddle as opposed to the 3-hour paddle. So it can be extremely rough. Now here's one of the change outs, and when it's flat like this, it's still fairly dangerous. I mean, you're still going up and down, but amazingly, we have never had anyone fall out of the Tomol or damage the Tomol when we're getting in and out. No one's fallen out of the Zodiac into the ocean. And that's how it's supposed to look. When you see our Tomol in the water, we keep it in Santa Barbara. We have practices most of the summer, usually on Sundays. And when you see the paddles all hit the water at the same time, it's just a beautiful sight. And if you're not hitting the water at the same time, you're not moving. Like I said, we're all happy this year. That's me and Ray's one of our captains. The first crew was me, Ray, the gentleman right there. Tom, he's 54, and Steve Villa, who's not in this picture. And Steve Villa, I found out, he was considered more towards our younger paddlers, but he's been in all the crossings. So, you know, he's our experienced paddler. And I go, we're in there paddling. I go, Steve, how old are you? And he reluctantly goes, I'm 45. I go, man, you're part of the 200 club now. I says, because we're still above 200. I'm 57, so that more than covers that 5 on you. So the 200 club got the most miles this year. But the first crew usually does. Reggie Pagaline from Santa Ynez, another one of our captains. The job of the people on the support boat is to help the paddlers when they come out of the Tomol, so especially at 57, but it's amazing, even a lot of our young paddlers, when they get out, when you're on your knees, I was on my knees for 3 hours paddling, so my legs are sore and tight. Tom, our number 1 paddler, he was having severe cramps the last half hour that we were paddling. So the job of the people on the support boat, one is the paddlers that get out, they help them. They bring them blankets, they get them tea or coffee or some Gatorade, some fruit, and to sing songs. We sing traditional songs all the time. And in the crossings where I've been in those 4 to 5 foot swells, and I've been in an hour and a half, and I'm thinking, man, I think I'm done. I'm just about ready to tell the captain in the back, because we have a little radio in the back. I says, I'm just about ready. There's been a couple of years where it's been like that, and I go, I'm just about ready to tell the captain, I think I'm done. I don't think I can paddle anymore. Call and let's make a crew switch. And then I'll hear him sing a traditional song, the dolphin song, the seaweed song, and it just inspires you that these are the songs that our ancestors sang in the language of my ancestors, and all of a sudden it's like I can go a few more minutes. A few more minutes turns into 15, 20, 30 minutes. So that support and prayers that they send. This gentleman is Kyle, which the gentleman back there I was sitting next to, and we were smiling and laughing and joking because everything was so flat, and we're going, man, this is easy. That's his son. So to show you what a select group of people that we have here, there's probably maybe about 2,000 to 3,000 people that have Chumash ancestry. Here we are just about to the island. Everyone there on the island is in shock that it's not even close to noon and we're already there. Usually it's around 2 o'clock. And this is the crew that we put in for the landing. Four of our young women paddlers, and Marcus Jr., who's also one of our young paddlers, and his father's one of our captains. So there's some select groups that when you think about it, if there's only 3,000 Chumash people, that's a pretty small percentage of the U.S. population. For the last 11 years, that's been the only working plank canoe in the world, the only one that's put in the water and paddled on a regular basis. All the ones that they have at the Maritime Museum, they just stay in there on exhibit. Although the one in the Maritime Museum, like I said, is the same as this, measurements and everything. We helped finish it. It's seaworthy. And when I was there last night, I dropped another one of the, just a subtle little hint that, the Tomol that you have here in the Maritime Museum is seaworthy, and we would be glad to take it out into the sea for you whenever you want. But like I said, for the last 11 years, this has been the only working Tomol. Santa Ynez is building one right now. There's going to be 30 feet. They'll have 5 or 6 paddlers in it. And then when they finish that one, they're going to build more. So I feel fairly confident, much the way after Shaq and Kobe won that first championship, that they were going to do it again. That sort of confidence that next year we will have at least 2 Tomols in our crossing. And then the following year we'll have at least 3, if not 4. There you can kind of see the people, and we usually have 150, maybe 200 people. Some Chumash, just parks people, friends. I met some people at a powwow in Moore Park, and they said, can we come out? I go, come on out. They brought their young son, and it's just a wonderful experience. We eat like kings and queens, and laugh and joke and talk about how fast we used to be. You can't tell it by this little fat body, but I used to be able to run incredibly fast. I used to be my village's fastest runner. That's how I used to introduce myself. That's me right there. I usually, all 6 crossings, I'm in charge of the landing crew. So all the guys with the red shirts, these are all paddlers. So we try and get our paddlers in the water, because it's a hardy boat, but it's delicate. The ears are delicate, the sides are delicate. So that's a rocky beach there. We've damaged it in Malibu on a landing there. We've damaged it a little bit up in Avila on landings up there. The landing is the most, for the Tomol, is the most dangerous part. So there we are bringing it in, and we go in and we cradle her and hold her while the paddlers get out, and we dump all the sandbags out and sand out. Then we lift it up and carry it and take it ashore. We take it to our camp, and like I said, we have a big dinner and tell stories and sing songs and things like that. That's Marcus Jr. I think he's a little happy about making the crossing. And even though he's fairly young, like I said, he's one of that, there's 7 of us that have been involved in all the crossings. Which gives us hope that Michael Cruz here has been in all the crossings, Marcus Jr., Jimmy Dominguez has been in 3 of them. So we keep telling them that us experienced paddlers, that 200 Club, we're just about ready to be put in the Tomol for about 300 or 400 yards, get our picture taken, and get out. And then they paddle, it's about 20 miles, so we keep telling them, we want you guys to paddle 19 3/4 miles. We're going to get in for the last quarter mile, and everyone's going to take our picture, okay? That's your mission if you accept it. And I think I have one, or did I go by the picture? There's all of our young women paddlers, but there are a few more that just weren't there for this journey. I was speaking with Ventura Unified Indian Education last year, and I was at a high school, and a young student, and she was a sophomore last year, so she's a junior this year, came up to me. She goes, I was out at the first crossing. She goes, my grandmother is Georgiana Sanchez, who in the long video, she's the person who's doing the narration. She's a storyteller and just a wonderful woman, elder, very respected, and her brother Johnny Moreno is relearning the language, probably knows the language better than anyone. So that's all the pictures. You know, all last day and today, I thought about the things that I want to talk about, disclaimers. For example, in Chumash territory goes from Morro Bay in the north to Malibu in the south, all the way to the San Fernando Valley. You go farther north, it goes inland almost up to the San Joaquin Valley, literally millions and millions of acres. When we trace back our family history to the San Fernando Mission, we found the document that my great-great-great-great-grandfather was part of. In the 1830s, the mission priests started giving out land grants. They gave out a few land grants, almost every mission, Ventura, Santa Barbara, San Fernando, almost all the missions all throughout the state would give a land grant, one land grant to the Indian people, the Indian families that helped build the mission. The rest of the land grants were given out to wealthy Spanish and Mexican farmers and ranchers and influential people that lived around the mission, important parishioners at the mission. In all the Chumash territory, all those millions of acres, and my great-great-great-great-grandfather was one of 3 or 4 Indian men from San Fernando that was given a land grant for a league of land, over 1,400 acres. All that's left is a little plaque with their names and a little monument at Rancho Encino. But that 1,400 plus acres was basically where the 405 and 101 intersect. If we would have been able to keep that land, the casino I would be part of right now. But that land was quickly taken back away by various politicians and government officials and influential people. And it went from various influential family to influential family. There's a history of it there at Rancho El Charro. That's what happened to all the other land grants and all the other Indian people throughout Chumash territory, except for the 8 or 9, 10 or 12 families around Santa Ynez. The Santa Ynez Reservation and Santa Ynez Chumash Casino is just for those families. I'm Ventureño because my Chumash ancestry comes from Tuapu, close to here, Ventura. So we spoke the Ventureño dialect. So the only way I get money from Santa Ynez, from the casino, is if I hit 3 cherries, 3 sevens, 3 anythings. Most California Indians are like me and like my family. We were never paid for our land. The treaties that were signed when California became a state were never honored. So in 1970, they started, the Bureau of Indian Affairs started, documenting, if you can prove that you're California Indian and that your family is California Indian back to 1824, we are going to pay you for your land since you were never paid. We have millions and millions of dollars that we are going to divvy up among all the California Indians. That was one of my first lessons. I was about 19, 20 years old when I found out after the fact that California has more tribes and more native peoples than any state in the United States. Those millions and millions of dollars, I think it was something like over $40 million, the first number that they were throwing around, worked out to be $653 per person. That's all me and my brothers and sisters and my dad and aunts and uncles have ever gotten from the Bureau of Indian Affairs. I'll close with a short story, then anyone's free to stay and ask more questions. I want to thank especially people in the front for no spitting and no biting. I worked juvenile probation, juvenile hall. I tell you, this was rough crowds there. There's a story about Limuw the owl. And I usually tell this story where I combine from 2 storytellers. One being Tony Romero, who was an elder on Santa Ynez, a wonderful man who helped bring back a lot of the culture, a lot of the dances, the condor dance, a lot of the traditional songs. And then there's another storyteller, a good friend of mine lives in Thousand Oaks, Gilbert Ansueta, and his mom is Ernestine DeSoto, and his great-grandmother was the last speaker of the Chumash language, Mary Yee, who was a Chumash woman married to a Chinese man in Santa Barbara. And she was the last one to speak a Chumash language conversationally. And he tells the story a little bit differently. He tells it with Who's the Bear. And Tony would tell it this way. And I've never seen this story, I've never read this story. I only heard Gilbert tell it and Tony Romero tell it. And I asked both of them if they mind if I would tell the story. And over the years, for me, it just kind of evolved into I used a little bit of both. But I want to tell it the way Tony Romero told it. That Limuw, the great horned owl, long, long ago did not look anything like he looks today. He didn't have those furry ears, feathery ears. He didn't have those big yellow eyes. He didn't have that beak. He was actually a songbird. He had a round, slick, smooth head, little brown, beady eyes, and a long beak for whistling songs. And he would whistle songs all day. He'd be up in a tree, and all the other animals would come and listen to Limuw, the songbird, sing his songs. And one day, Limuw, the songbird, was up whistling his songs, and all the animals are around, and they were by Zaca Lake. And they say in Zaca Lake that there's a giant woman that lives in the lake, 30 feet tall. And while Limuw was whistling his beautiful songs, this woman stuck her head out of the water, and she was listening to the songs, and she goes, Limuw, your songs are so beautiful. Come here, let me give you a hug of appreciation. And Limuw, being a curious bird, thought, well, okay, I'll fly down. And when he flew down, he saw that even though it was just the head of this woman, that he could tell she was a very large woman. And he got scared and flew away. But he was curious. So the next day he came back, and he was in the same tree there by Zaca Lake. And he was there whistling his songs. Limuw originally started In-A-Gadda Vida by Iron Butterfly. Yeah. They stole it from Limuw, the songbird. And once again, the giant woman of Zaca Lake kind of poked her head out, this time about to her shoulders. She goes, Limuw, come here, I just want to give you a hug. I won't hurt you, I just want to give you a hug of appreciation because your songs are so beautiful. And Limuw thought, well, She just wants to give me a hug. She says, you know, it's just because she loves my songs. That'll probably be okay. So he flew down, and he got too close to her. And when he got too close to her, she stood up, and she reached and grabbed Limuw. And he realized now that she was 30 feet tall, like they said, and this giant woman had him, and he's trying to get away from her. He goes, oh, please, let me go. And she goes, oh, let me give you just one hug. And she goes, ugh! And she gave him a big old hug. And she hugged him so hard, those feather ears popped out of his head. And he's squirming, he's trying to get away. He goes, oh, please, let me go. You don't know your own strength. And she goes, oh, let me give you one more hug. And she goes, ugh! And she gives him another big old hug. And that's how he got those big yellow eyes. His eyes just popped out. He's going, oh, let me go. If you give me any more hugs, you'll kill me. And she goes, okay, I'm just going to give you a kiss. And she went, no. Well, living at the bottom of that lake and eating nothing but fish and stuff, she hadn't brushed her teeth in a long, long time. She had the worst breath that Limuw had ever seen. And her breath was so bad that that beautiful long beak that he whistled all those beautiful songs just went and bent over. And that's how Limuw the songbird became Limuw the great horned owl. And as Tony Romero would say, that's why the owl flies around at night going, who done this to me? So thank you. I hope you enjoyed.